Well, buddy, this is it, man. Your farewell, your swan song, the end. And now we've come to the end of the road, and I can't let go.
You know, there's buttons on this board where you can do sound effects.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Don't do that to me. I was just singing a song to you, man.
Today,
yeah?
dude, that'd be crazy.
If we just learned it today. Oh, I would have loved that. That would have been awesome.
Dude, I didn't even hear it. How loud was it in your headphones?
It was perfect. It was perfect sound. It was.
I wonder if it's recorded.
Did you not hear what it was?
It was a trombone.
But do you know what it was? It was.
Yeah. I heard it a little bit. It was so faint.
Yeah.
What's that?
It sounds almost like our intro. It's like. It's just a dance kind of disco, R&B deal. Did I say disco? R&B.
Oh, yes. I figured it out, dude.
What?
Hey, I can hear it now.
Oh, the end of season 1, we have learned the sound effects. Oh.
Bro.
Oh, I like it. It's awesome. Anyways, we
are way too late into
way
this.
too late.
Now we have to start season 2. What's this one?
All right.
Welcome to the 61st Minute Podcast. Wait, sorry, 1 second. Oh, all right, here we go. Welcome to the 61st Minute Podcast. Community Bible. Hey, wait, you do it. We'll do the intro. Ready? Here we go.
Okay. Welcome to the 61st Minute, a podcast of Community Bible. I am your host, Tim Homa, and I'm with my co-host, Nicholas Kerouac. Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, gosh, we could do this for the next 45 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. That would have been perfect.
Hey, wait, all right. Here,
I'll introduce you.
Last time. All right, here we go. So we'll start over.
Yep.
Wait, let me make sure I get to the run. All right, here we go.
Welcome to the 61st Minute, a podcast of Community Bible. I am your host, Tim Homa, and I'm with my co-host today, Nicholas Kerouac.
Nailed it.
Oh, man, our last episode of season 1, and we learned the board. We learned the sound effects.
Finally learned the sound.
Well,
man, now I wish I would have used something on Richy.
I know, that would have been fun. We got Richy here today, our lead pastor, and he's talking a little bit about Job. Talking about Job, and we're also talking about time change. And yesterday, you could feel in the congregation that everybody was missing that hour of sleep. I don't like that hour change. I don't. I understand it because it's just what we've always had to do in life, but it takes my dogs, it takes me time to catch up to.
I slept in today. Like, I woke up and Allison's like, Nick, you got the podcast. Like, and it was like 7:30.
Oh, I woke up at 7. I was late too.
Yeah.
I was like rushed up to jump in the shower because usually I'm up at 6.
Which is funny because I got a great night's sleep last night.
I did too.
We went to bed early.
I did. Yeah. I went to bed.
But
same,
still,
bro. But the day before, miserable.
Internal clock was like all jacked up.
Yeah, we went to bed early and caught up on that hour. But yesterday it was tough. But man, hey, today's it. The end of season 1. It's been a great season. We've had how many episodes?
I think we're 21.
21 episodes, man.
Maybe 22.
I think it's been awesome, and I'm excited about season 2. Unfortunately, it will be without you, though. And I'm going to be bringing on a new co-host, and I'm excited about the opportunity to tag team season 2. And I think season 2 will be fun because it'll be in line with where we're going as a church. And I think we're going to really try to make season 2 expand even further. Just try to reach more and more people, and we're going to do a little bit more advertisement and promotion of it. And but man, this is
really
it for
was
you.
a success.
It was, and I appreciate you doing it with me.
Yeah, it was a great time.
And I think you all enjoy it. It's a fun podcast today. It's a good one to end on.
I want to give one shout out before we move on to the regular podcast.
Yeah,
Kathy, one of our church members. And there's a few other ones, but she has been listening ever since the very beginning. And she always reaches out about how excited she is for the next podcast. So,
Kaylee, thank you so much for listening every week. We really appreciate it. And man, It's that warms my heart knowing somebody listened.
I think her
to
and
21.
Brittany, her coworker Brittany.
Brittany,
I think
Brittany, shout out to Brittany this morning.
Yeah.
Hey, come say hi to me. I'd like to meet you guys, and it would be awesome. Just come on up. Say we're the two girls that listen to your podcast. Two ladies that listen to your podcast, and
they're both barbers. They cut my hair. Well, Kaylee does, but anyway.
That's,
pretty cool.
Shout out. We're getting shout out to the hair cutter too. That's
haircutter,
awesome. All right.
Well, no, Kaylee is my hair barber. Yeah,
right. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, there you go. Cool.
Do you call if they're ladies? Do you call them barbers? You don't call them barbers.
I thought it was.
Hairstylists.
I mean, they work in a barber shop.
They do.
Yeah, so they're like I think
barbers.
they are barbers. Yeah.
I thought there was barbers were.
Is this like an actor thing? Like
maybe
I don't know.
hairstylist.
Hey, Kaylee, maybe you'll have her on season 1, episode 1, or season 2, episode 1 about clear all that up.
Telling us what's the difference between barber and hairstylist. Because I don't think she would. Do you think she would term herself barber or hairstylist?
I think so.
Okay,
I think so. I'm going to text her after this. And
Kaylee, I need to know. I need to know so that I am correct.
There you go.
Well,
enjoy the podcast.
Enjoy. Today is the end of season 1. Today is the finale of season 1 of the 61st Minute podcast. And it happens also to be my co-host, Nick Kerouac's last podcast as a member of Community Bible. Today, buddy, this is it. Woo!
I had another podcast offer me
I'm just
more money.
Doing the
so we're changing.
Oh boy! Well, if you can find it, go get it. Go get it.
All the podcasts.
It's called the second. It's the 60-second
60-second minute podcast. That's good.
How you feeling today?
Man, I feel good.
Yesterday, are you feeling nostalgic? Are you feeling emotional? I mean, feel like it's time to end this thing and move on.
I'm sad about the podcast ending.
Yeah, me too. I mean,
this has been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Because the next person sitting there is going to be the new co-host, and
they're always going to have to know that they're the second best.
I know they're going to have to live up to the legend himself, Nick Kerouac.
Do I feel sad? Yes, I feel sad this whole week. I felt sad yesterday, but I was telling Richie yesterday. I said, I think one thing that helped is I've been leaving for 4 months. So it's not as like such a pull the Band-Aid off and feel all the emotions. It also helps that every week I'm doing a pile of paperwork for the Air Force and I have to do this. Like today I'm going to go time myself and see where I'm at on the PT test that I'm going to have to do in 2 weeks. And so it keeps your mind busy. And then because we've all known this has been coming for months.
But you know what? It could have been. This could have been over. You could have been gone in February because originally you thought you were going to be in February.
Yeah, they pushed me back.
So,
but even then, so yesterday, I dreaded having to give my little 2.5 minute goodbye to Community Bible, and I got a little emotional. But
hey, Mr. Emotion himself. Look at share a little bit of where'd that come from?
I pulled a tear out of Richy.
You
Fisher.
did.
I might be the only one.
I don't think I've ever pulled a tear out of joy out of Richy. Other than
it's been a long 2 months. That's vulnerable.
He is vulnerable.
He was vulnerable. Oh, you got him at his weakest
because I looked
point.
him in the eyes and I said, "Richy, you're a great leader." And I just saw it happen.
It was the fog in the room, the haze.
Yeah, when did we get the onion scented haze?
We put garlic smell and onion smelling on the microphone so that when you were smelling,
there was some emotion involved because I don't talk about this much. Tim knows me. One of the passions that I have in life, and I know Tim does as well, is investing in young men, women in ministry, and it really is a great joy to look at over the time God's allowed me to do ministry, how many young men and young women have come up through I get to serve with, and you see them, take on new challenges in their spiritual walk and in their career. And that really is an honor. And so, I'm sitting there looking at Nick and Allison and Jones, and then thinking about, the landscape of the individuals over the course of almost 40 years. And I do get emotional because it's a great joy in ministry to help others achieve, what they didn't think they could achieve, or just walk with them and see God doing something in their life. So
yeah, we love watching our kids grow up. I mean, really, when at this point in our careers, Richie and I have had the opportunity to speak into it for a long season, up and coming youth pastors and youth leaders, and watching them. Oh man. People can come that we can just list off name after name after name. My recent was Major Fig. Major, I was able to do his wedding, and I always told that guy he's going to be youth pastor.
I'm going to work for that guy, Major Fig.
Major Fig. He's airborne. He's airborne guy.
He's not a major yet.
No, but
wait, you're actually called. So he is.
His first name is Major.
His first name is Major.
Oh, his first name.
No, I'm sorry.
I'm working
his
for
name
Major
is
Fig.
Major, but Major he has jumped out of a plane now. He's gotten his patch for however many jumps. He's a parachute guy, and he's awesome. I always thought he was going to be a youth pastor, and he will probably be a minister one day. But you just come alongside people. You just know they have a leadership gear, and when they are released from your care, or when they jump out of the nest, kind of like what you're doing, Nick, you just feel confident that you're going to soar. And I think Richie expressed that in a great way from the platform yesterday in both services. And I think you're right. 4 months, you've been able to get through the emotion and get through it. Now you cross the finish line, put the arms back, push through, and you go like, all right, what's the next challenge that comes in?
And there's a
weeks?
spiritual thing, I don't want to not over spiritualize it, but I'm standing there, and there's just times where the Holy Spirit, he kind of punches you in your arm and says, yeah, this is what this is about.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the sides of ministry is this training, equipping believers for works of service, so the body of Christ may be built up. And that's really a core verse of mine. And when I started here as a lead pastor 2.5 years ago, I really believed that not only the team that we have, that God was going to build great things in them, but there would be new ones come up. And it was just another affirmation I felt from the Holy Spirit saying, this is what Community Bible is about.
Yeah.
This. And we're sad that you're leaving, but it was a great sense of joy. And I really did feel that man, we get to be part of Nick and Allison's life. He's going to serve our country. We've invested in him. He's invested in us. It's a win in every category.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty happy.
Well, that's one thing I wanted to be clear on, especially yesterday in that quick 2 minutes that I had to cry. Man, so many in our culture of criticism, culture of criticism. Someone leaves somewhere, and a lot of people's minds immediately go, well, who ticked him off? Or what fell apart here? That,
or what's the real story?
Or what's
behind
the exactly? Or what's the real story?
That's especially in the church.
And I 100% the truth. We're not running from anything. We're not dissatisfied. We're not frustrated. None of that. But I just wanted to be clear to everybody that, hey, this truly is, not only is it, do we feel God's calling us, like this has been a 3-year process of wrestling with it before we left. So Job.
We can talk a little bit about Job if we want. If we can talk about March Madness.
March Madness.
Job, March Madness. Nobody in here
Probably
is March
Job.
Madness other than me. So
I was a little distracted yesterday, Richie, if I'm honest.
You didn't.
The emotions.
Well, I
I
didn't. I listened to the whole message. Angie and I did, and a lot of great feedback again. Richie, just
don't be legalistic.
Just really well done, well presented. I think this is a great walkthrough. Even breaking down the faith of prosperity. Prosperity, right? Prosperity.
Well, I did bring up the prosperity gospel.
Yeah, but what was the faith of?
Propriety.
Propriety.
Yeah.
That I was just the word, but the faith of propriety, that you really broke that down and you looked at these conversations he's having with his so-called friends who are telling him, you must have done something wrong for God to be cursing you. So maybe it's time to confess. And he's like, I got nothing.
I got nothing.
I got nothing. But
Yeah. No.
How'd you think it went
I mean, that's a tough question.
when you're the one preaching?
Yeah,
you have the humility.
It was the greatest ever.
it was the worst thing I could ever do. False humility.
There you
That's
go.
what that is.
Yeah. You know, when I'm teaching, I'm trying to, you know, kind of pull the curtain back a little bit. A lot of, and I know we all do that. When I'm teaching, a lot of this is what I'm learning. And I heard, I think it was Piper who said that he felt like his job during the week before he spoke was to mine through every bit of research and study he can on a topic and find nuggets, because the average church member isn't going to do that. And that stuck with me several years ago, that if I've done a good job, I've researched and mined through and looked through. And as I'm doing that, I find stuff that either, you know, I hadn't thought about, or it's been a long time, or is really applicable. And and what I had been hearing a lot over the last few years of, you know, post-COVID pain, suffering, why God, and that there must be a reason why people, you know, are hurting. And I even heard a family who had a special needs child, and someone said, you know, well, the reason is you've sinned. Or I have a friend whose spouse has an illness, and someone actually said, and this was recently, maybe she has sin in her life. And as I'm doing all the research and study over the last couple of weeks, just on the message yesterday, I just felt like legalism, which is where that stems from, and I just, you know, my crude definition of legalism is that you've got God figured out, and therefore you need to impose that upon everyone else.
Yeah.
That the God I know doesn't allow dancing, and therefore you can't dance. Or the God I know.
There's a movie about that, I think.
Yeah, there was. Just let the kids dance. And I think yesterday the feedback I got was people who had been bound by that. You know, they'd been hit over the head with. You know, I even got a text that said, you know, I had an illness a few years ago, and I felt like it had to be something I had done to displease God, and realizing, no, it wasn't.
So what's fascinating about that, last week when you told me the direction you were going, I said, man, that's going to land really well with our church. And I say that not jokingly, because Community Bible really at its core of Ed's vision was to be that church to escape that. Did you feel like yesterday's message, obviously some people needed to hear it, but do you think a majority of our culture here at Community Bible understands that idea of legalism, or do you think it's still something that kind of permeates itself within any church culture that you're a part of?
Yeah, I think it's all around us. I mean, I get it. I mean, people will tell me, you know, you should do this or you should do this. Legalism is very destructive, and it's very just permeates, I think, every corner, and it can easily infiltrate into a church. And I know when CB started in '96, it was really a reaction against legalism, basically hijacking a church.
Yeah.
And saying, this is how we're going to function. And if you can't function that, you know, if you can't wear a coat and tie in here on Sunday, you know, well, Jesus wore a coat and tie, and we're going to wear coat and ties. And
with moccasins, I think.
Hey, Richie and I we were at a church where the senior pastor would get emails if he didn't polish his shoes, they were noticed.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And I think it can so easily, because of our culture, infiltrate into a church. And so I didn't teach yesterday from that vantage point.
Yeah.
I taught it really from, you know, let the scripture breathe. And when you, and I think it was Piper where I, in my study, had identified the three, there's four responses to trying to explain why Job did what he did. Elihu, which I'll deal with in 2 weeks, was the one that was probably the most accurate. He's the only one that God didn't say, I'm displeased with him.
That's the one that's the brother that, or the
last
friend that is watching the other three is sitting on the sidelines.
Right. And some believe he wasn't
listening.
even Job's friend. He was a bystander. He overhears this and then he waits and then he steps in and he just says, Job, could be God's beyond your understanding. And he's trying to teach you from something. And he didn't do it right, but that's what he says.
Yeah.
But when you look at the three, they each are having three different reasons why Job is going through this. And, you've sinned, someone else has sinned, or you're just not righteous enough. You're a hypocrite. And I think just that permeates in all of our minds, even in my own. When something bad happens, I first go to God and say, what are you doing, God? Why are you doing this to me of all people? And so that's where legalism can come in. We try to understand God from our perspective. And 38, 39, 40, God's saying, you can't comprehend me.
I think one thing, and really where the core of my question was from, was just, I do in my 10 years here at Community, I think we've always had at the forefront kind of keeping legalism in check as a church culture, individual church culture, probably because where, Ed was when he found the spot. But one thing I found in my own life is, I tell this story every now and again. I was kind of in the midst of legalism, looked down my nose on people, early college, late high school when I first became a Christian, and got burnt a little bit at a church that we were at. And then when that happened, I started being the cool Christian, hanging out with all the edgy kids and the edgy cool Christian on campus and stuff like that, thinking that I was pushing away from legalism, right? And what I realized is now living that life, I was looking down my nose at all the coats and ties on Sunday morning, thinking I'm better than you guys. Look at what and I realized I never changed. I just switched teams, right? And that's one thing that I don't think we have an issue of it at Community Bible, but one thing you also have to be mindful of is, hey, if we're really trying to keep our legalism in check, well, when someone shows up to Community Bible in a coat and tie, they need to feel just as welcomed here as the guy in flip-flops and shorts.
Yeah, I think somebody was talking to someone about it wasn't dress code. We were just talking about maybe I bought a new shirt or something, and so for me on Sunday, I'm 59, and so you can't dress too young because I can't pull it off, right? Yeah.
I've been trying, but it ain't working.
I see these pastors online, and I'm like, no, you shouldn't wear that.
Yep.
You're old.
Yeah.
Don't wear that. But I don't want to. I've never really dressed too old either,
Yeah, right.
And so it's a fine line. I've never got more criticisms on how I've dressed at any church. Let me make sure I'm equally to any church. Is when I wore a sweater with a tie underneath it at Community Bible.
People cooked you for that?
Oh my God!
I thought he looked fresh.
I had more people come up to me and they were jokingly serious about what in the world is going on. We have a tie on stage.
With a tie.
No,
You should have been like,
We
is
got
it clip on?
Hey, we've got a dress code here, and that's not
I
it.
really had a few say that.
Get
It's
out
like,
of our church.
You're wearing a tie? How dare you?
Yeah.
How funny
And
that
then I think I followed that up a few weeks later with a sport coat, and they were like, "Whoa, wait a minute! So he's wearing a jacket on stage."
He's bringing the
Man,
fire.
I
That's
can't wait
right.
to get all my sport coats out of storage one day. I'll
and
be wearing those bad boys.
I don't have the courage to wear a suit, but one day I may try it just to poke the bear.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That is funny.
So which was funny is I think they would have been happier if I'd have worn shorts and flip-flops on stage than if I'd have worn a tie.
Yeah.
And so you just look at where this church came from.
Yeah.
That's just a foreign concept to them. But you're right. We got to be equally sensitive on both sides of that. That if somebody shows up in a coat and tie, hey, I'm fine with that.
One of our campuses of a church that I was at one time, there was an old guy named Lefty. His name was Lefty, and he showed up every Sunday, suit and tie.
I need to start like hanging out with the people y'all know, Major and Lefty.
That's was name.
We're-
It sounds like a
old
bunch.
dudes.
It sounds like Ed just started assigning nicknames to people, and these are all of our friends.
Well, when you're old like us,
That's funny. Anyway, so Lefty wearing a coat and tie.
Every Sunday to a church that nobody ever dressed up at. I mean, to that extreme. But he showed up, and he felt like if I would walk in and I had a sport coat on, he'd be like, "Thanks for dressing up today." But I did have somebody one time say to me, "You should wear a tie because this church, the church membership, you should honor them for the money they give to this church. That's why you."
You know why I
right to
give
my
money?
face because I said, "Well."
I give to this church because I want him to wear a tie.
yeah.
That
Right.
better be going to
they,
the tie.
They thought
the tie
that's
fund.
where the honor was coming from. Like, I should honor the legacy of this church by dressing up. And then the next time I saw him and I didn't have a tie and he asked me, I go, "I must have lost it on the way here. I'm sorry." And it became a running thing. I go, "Nope, I still can't find it." I would tell the guy, "Still can't find the tie. I'm sorry."
It's so fascinating, and this is a rabbit trail. So I'm going to try to not go too far on it. But dressing up in the way we dress up in the Western culture is something that we created.
Yeah.
And it's like we think, we've almost taken this definition of how we honor our workplace and go, that's how we honor Jesus. And it's like, where did we get this confused?
Even down to the deeper rabbit hole is wearing a hat or not wearing a hat when you pray.
I've seen people cook people. Because
Yeah, and it's
they wore a hat
there's
in church.
nothing. I listened to not a whole sermon, but a portion of a message on the fact that you do not need to take your hat off when you're praying. But it's a man-made deal, and it is
a respect
So,
thing, yeah.
what do you hear at the national anthem?
Please remove your caps. Yeah.
Yep. You know, so there's this deal like you must take your cap off because that's a military, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, it's a
let's talk about rabbit trail.
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's don't major on the minors, and in church, there's things that you got to hold tightly, and that's scripture, and that's doctrine. You got to hold that tightly, and there's things you don't hold tightly, and so legalism a church can easily go that way because a dozen people move in and they're very legalistic and they start start chipping away at things and like I just don't think you should wear white tennis shoes on stage or a hat or this, and it kind of permeates, and then you get your focus off of what the purpose of the church is. And so CB, launched kind of against that. It can easily filter in. But I think people are just, I think coming back to yesterday, what I heard were people who had some relief that you may have gone through a tough time because either you made a bad decision or God's working out a plan that's an eternal plan, and He is sovereign, and He's there with you, and it's okay. And I think a lot of people went, "Oh, maybe God isn't mad at me, or He's punishing me, or I'm paying for someone else's mistake, or it's not that I'm good enough." Is that sometimes bad things are going to happen, and God will see us through it.
Yeah.
And I used a word in one of my statements, one of my if-then statements. Therefore, God always, and that's I put that in there strategically.
Yeah.
He doesn't always function how we think He should. We'll see that in 2 weeks.
Did I ever tell you the story, Tim, about Jim Krause's brother? Have I ever told you? So Jim Krause was a buddy of mine. We were on a bicycle ride, and Jim crashed about 100 feet in front of me.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he ended up passing away.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things I ever went through, right? His wife and stepdaughter were on the ride with us, and man, I remember in the moment had to kind of be pastor hat, wear the pastor hat, right? Get them home, and I'm leaving, and I pull out a little rock and just start breaking down because I watched my friend pass away. And anyway, long story short, we get to the funeral. The family comes in from Long Island. We do the funeral. The family leaves. I develop a relationship with Jim Krause's brother, just a small one, just kind of while we're there. He ended up being the first person I called to to notify that he passed away. And then I think in the moment he knew what was happening, he just kind of panicked and said, sorry, wrong number. So I ended up calling his mom, but it turns out it was his brother. Anyway, probably about 4 or 5 months after Jim's funeral, I get a phone call from Long Island. I'm sitting on the front porch of my house, and it's Jim's brother. And he just says, he's like, man, I've never experienced Jesus like I did at my brother's funeral. And then as we're talking, he ends up asking me to pray with him to become a believer. And so we pray for him to receive Jesus over the phone. He ends up getting connected to a church in Long Island, a Celebrate Recovery in Long Island, and is pursuing after Jesus as a believer. And it was one of those things that, and my point of this conversation is God does have a plan, but because he does have a plan, doesn't make it feel any better necessarily. But I did have to come to the realization that said, man, God used Jim's funeral and Jim's death to lead Jim's brother to Jesus. Yeah. Well, if Jim's up in heaven and Jim's death got one more person into heaven in the grand scheme of eternity, that's worth it. Mm-hmm. But for us, I want to be like, you could have found another way. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but it's
I think,
still one of those things that God's sovereign and God's in control.
I think my God shot yesterday with in your message, Richie, was the fact that we're going to see the whole plan that God has for us, but we may not see it on this side of heaven. So that's the trust, that's the faith, that is the perseverance through it. It's the knowing that God's going to work it out for his good, but we may not see it while we're living on this earth. Mm-hmm. And you got to keep that in the forefront of your mind in everything that you're doing. Ultimately, it's tough, but there's nothing about life that's easy. Nothing. Mm-hmm. But if you trust a sovereign God who is all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful, his plan is perfect, his timing is perfect, you can rest assured that, yes, you're going to go through it. It's a season, but on the other side of it, you'll be able to look back and see why you had to go through it in order to get to that point. Yeah. But man, it was
no, you're right. There's a verse, and the location eludes me, but it says, when we get to heaven, we'll have no more questions. And we get there, and God says, okay, here was the plan. You go, oh. So you said something that's significant, and we'll look at in 2 weeks. It doesn't make it any easier. And the reason it doesn't make it any easier is because we are earthly minded. So if we gauge everything happening in the context of birth to death and see that as the most important thing,
it'll never feel good.
It will never feel good. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Here's what happens when Job says, hey, you show me where God is. I want to go face him and ask him some questions. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the great thing about Scripture and the book of Job. God shows up. Job asks 0 questions. Because God says, hey, before you ask me some questions,
let me show you something.
I want to ask you some questions.
Yeah.
So, Job, where were you?
Yeah, let me show you. Let me.
When I stretched out the basically the tape measure for the earth, and he goes through this explanation of what he does on a regular basis, his job, and that's distribute justice and animals and creation, the weather cycle, the rain cycle. He lays all of that out. And that's where Job goes, oh.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking right.
I'm pretty small in comparison. Yeah.
I repent.
Yeah.
And the people that I have seen go through pain and suffering, and they do it effortlessly, are people who understand that life is short, and compared to eternity, it doesn't matter that much. Mm-hmm. It matters, but not that much.
I still think death is a fearful thing for people.
Sure.
Because they understand Jesus. they understand being a follower of Jesus, but that unknown after. So
I'm scared of it.
Real quick. My wife and I are taking a walk yesterday with our dogs, and she goes, "I'm really afraid of 62, the age 62." And I attribute it like, why? Because 62 that could be the day that we die. And I started thinking about it, and my dad died at 62. Her dad died at 62. I said, Ange, our dads died at 62. She goes, I'm not afraid of me dying at 62. I'm afraid of you dying at 62. I'm like, honey, I'm not going to die at 62. She goes, you don't know that. You don't know. And I don't. I said, no matter what. I said, yeah, you're right. I don't know that, but I'm going to live every day. Yes, we are moving on to,
dude, if you die at 62 now, you're going to have to, your legacy will be a liar. You're a liar.
That's true. But we think as humans of an end, and we don't. As a Christian, we don't think about the fact that it doesn't end. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just gets better.
Yeah.
But we don't, because we can't. We think better is here. I've heard people say, "I don't want to die because I love my life right now," and they're Christians. Like, things are so good right now. I'm like, you have no idea how much better it will be. And but it's hard for people to think nothing can get better than this moment.
Life itself is right now is a guarantee. Okay, this life
today,
that I'm right now is a guarantee. That's
today.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And we flock to that as people.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. In the same way, I could be on a mountaintop moment of my faith. And if I told you that I didn't sometimes lay in bed looking at the ceiling fan going, I wonder if this is real.
I know.
I'd be lying to you. Yeah. And I'm a pastor.
Well, I've only known one person in my life that ever said to me, one person, and I don't know if I fully believed him, but he sure was convincing, that said, I don't doubt anything about Jesus. I don't doubt where I'm going. I've never had a moment when I became a follower of Jesus that I doubted anything about him. I'm like, that is amazing.
And I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen, God's moved more in my life this last year and a half, like where you can tell he just orchestrated stuff, right, in our lives. And even then, does doubt creep its way in? 100%. So the fear that I sometimes have of death and that I feel of death is all highlighted, and I 100% believe that it's Satan using that little bit of doubt that you have in your faith. That's what's making you fear of death, scared of dying, because there's this fear of, what if I die and it just goes black and it just ends? Well, life's way better than that, right? you know.
Yeah, but in that scenario, so what?
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
You won't even know it, and I think that's the certainly in my own life, preach to myself here, is that when it doesn't get any better than this. Well, but the Bible says it gets much better than this. So do I believe that or not? Well, I don't believe it. That's a lot of people don't believe that. That doesn't get any better than this. When we, I've been on 2 cruises in my life, and it was a decent experience. The last one was my whole family went. My wife, kids, and their wives, which was better than just when me and Susan went. And we both agreed to that. We had fun. But just being with my kids was great. So we get there early. We're the first ones getting ready. And you've been to a cruise, right?
Yeah.
Tim, you've been on? Have you ever been on? Okay. So you go up and you're in this big waiting room for you get to go on board. And
Purgatory.
Well, that's what honestly, that's what I was thinking about. Is I was like,
did you say purgatory?
Purgatory, like East Arkansas.
So let me finish this. Cruises are good, okay?
They are.
Cruises are good, but there's better, all right? But cruises are good. Yeah. But my kids had never been on one. So I love, I've always loved as a dad watching my boys experience new things. And I mean anything. It doesn't matter. I'd make up stuff just to watch them when they were really little. Yeah. Just to experience it, whether it's a tree swing or swimming or whatever. So none of, just me and Susan were the only ones that had ever been on a cruise. So we knew what to expect. And so we get there early, we get into this large waiting room, and I was giddy because they're about to have a great time. And they don't even know it.
Yeah.
Now they've trusted me, but they still don't know. And that first day, I had more fun watching them
Have fun.
Yeah. Explore the ship, the endless food, and I thought about heaven. Is that Jesus had been to heaven, and he says, "I'm going to go prepare a place for you." He gives us details of what heaven's looking like, and then when you read the book of Revelation, it is beyond our understanding of how incredible it is, and yet we live our lives as if it's not true. We live our lives
so true.
As if, we've got this cruise, but we're going to stay in the waiting room. It's better than the cruise. I'd rather be out here in this waiting room because it's awesome. And yet, just on the other side, when we cross that big bridge, right?
Yeah. Oh, man, totally. When you get on that boat, it changes everything.
Everything changes.
It's awesome.
And you suddenly relax because you got no schedule.
Yep.
And you go, let's go get some food, or let's go get ice, or let's go do this. and I think that when we look at pain and suffering, when we look at it from that, Paul calls it light and momentary. How could he say that? Well, this is a dude that eventually got his head lopped off because of his faith, but he calls it light and momentary. It's like it's nothing.
Yep.
It's nothing. Yeah. And so when we take that God has a plan, that a lot of times we're going through tough times because he has a plan. Your transition over the last 4 months and me and you, the last 3 years, has not been easy. There have been a lot of hard times, a lot of hard moments, a lot of hard conversations, a lot. Look at how many times you almost got in and didn't, back and forth. Pain and suffering. But God's working out a plan. And in 2 weeks, Frankie's going to be talking next week about when God seems silent. He's never silent, but when he seems silent, what do you do? And you can see Job, he cries out and he vents. And then I'm going to show up when God isn't silent, when he begins to talk, when he begins to show you what he's doing, you suddenly realize this world stinks. And when I get out of it, everything is going to be improved and 1,000 million times better than it is now. Because this world stinks compared to what God has prepared for us in advance. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm excited. I get an opportunity to...
Oh, well, you get the fun one.
But I'm also speaking at Greenwood on When God Speaks. And I've been working on that sermon. I'm really excited about that one because... so often people live their lives waiting to hear from God, but when God speaks, you just know it. Well, man.
We should write a worship song about how life stinks like when the breezes come in from the northeast into Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Hey, so this is the end. The end of the season 1 and the end of Nick's time with us. But Nick, it's been an honor and a privilege to share this podcast with you, buddy.
The honor and privilege has been all mine. It's been a fun journey.
So you get to say us out of here.
Well, thank you for listening to the 61st Minute Podcast by Community Bible. I'm your host, Nicholas Kierwack, with my co-host, Tim Homa. And it truly has been great. Tim will catch you with a new co-host for Season 2. In the future, be looking for announcements of when that will be coming. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. And thank you for hanging out with us wherever that was, whether it was in your car, through your headphones, or on one of your devices. Love you guys.